Yes.
You know, in regards to the $2,000 rent limit, you know, I think the $2,000 mark is very important. You know, for example, over the last 9 years, you know, 4 or 5 of those years, I had to reduce the rents on those apartments because of the market, whether 911 or the debacle in 2008 with the credit, whatever. But the point, those people, you know, all the papers had articles about, you know, rents are going down, ask your landlord for a cut. So all my rent stabilized tenants are asking me for a cut in the rent. And I said, no, you're not getting a cut in the rent. You know, you're paying well below the market, and I'm sorry, I can't afford to give you a cut in the rent. But the point I'm saying is that, you know, there's many different components that have inflation factors. I don't see any reason why the rent limit should have an inflation factor, number one. Number two, the whole idea of doing this kind of decontrol was to do away with the rent control, rent stabilization system.
That's right.
Because it is a pox on this city. I mean, never, you know, by the way, I'm a devout Democrat and I'm very liberal. But I've seen many tenants stuck in rent control and rent stabilized apartments, afraid to buy something because, you know, they figured their rent was so cheap. But then 5 years later, as rents went up, because rent stabilization had 6% increases in some years, as rents went up, they could no longer afford to buy. They got screwed because they were holding on to a rent stabilized apartment. So we know that, you know, the whole idea of the rent limit is to get this system dead.
And it is,
And it's not dead yet.
and unfortunately, the liberal Democrats are the ones who are going to make sure that it gets preserved forever.
Yeah, I know.
And you know what? Again, some of Albany. I hate it when I get a call from Albany. I almost lost my train of thought. Now I'm thinking, what the hell is that phone call about?
Rent stabilization.
All right. I'm sorry. Next question. Who's 3?
Hold that limit.
I provide a service, and the tenants are my customers. I provide very good service, and most of the tenants, they love me. I would say more than 99% of them. Now, all the fightings between your organization and the tenants advocates, did you ever sit down with them and see what they're really looking for, or some kind of compromise with them?
I really wish I had that video. Let me tell you something. Many years ago,
Not many years ago, presently,
listen to me, listen. I don't want to say you're naive, but I'm going to tell you what it is. There is absolutely no interest on the part of those advocates to ever want to make a deal. They'd rather have the fight than compromise. And our one attempt or 2 attempts to try to negotiate with them on issues not having to do with rent regulation. When they found out that somebody was actually talking to us, they made sure that individual's funding was cut. So when you're dealing with a person that's been fighting this issue, 75 years old, there is no compromise.
A follow-up, you said there's 1.2 million renters in New York City.
That's right.
The tenant advocates are probably less.
I'm sorry, 1.1 and stabilized apartments.
Well, probably the tenant advocates is less than 1%. Why don't you get your point across to the 99% of the tenants?
You know, if I'm a tenant and I'm in a rent stabilized apartment and I'm being told that your rent will go up if you don't fight the issue, what do you think? I'm willing to put my hand in my pocket and give money out? This is in their mind, and it has nothing to do with the means test. There are people who can well afford to pay whatever the market is. But why would anybody in their right mind be willing to, they love you? They don't love you enough to say, I'm willing to give you more money for your apartment. Well, I'm just telling you, that's a unique position. Does anybody here think I'm nuts in responding to that? I mean, I gotta tell you something. These individuals will never compromise.
All the time, that's my point.
They will never compromise. It's not in their interest to compromise. They'd rather have the symbol of fighting you guys who are rich. That's how they portray you, as rich guys. You know, okay, I'm not going to convince you, so it's okay. Who's not?
Well, you know what's fighting was creating all this problem with the politicians.
So try to convince the politicians.
Try to get
The guy who's the liberal Democrat
together
to
and
convince
fight
your
the
politician that he should.
Try to get together and fight the politicians.
Yes, yes.
That's number 4. I took in a tenant in the DHS program, and the city just cut that program with Absolutely no notice.
All right, okay. Is there anybody else here who understands, who's participating in the Advantage program? Okay, then it's clear to me you're the only one. Okay? Let me tell you something. Well, if you had called us, we would have told you, don't do it. All right, but it's okay. This is a program that the city takes people out of the homeless shelters. You're willing to rent it to them. The city will guarantee the rent payment. You think this is what? It's like Section 8, right? There's only one problem. It's not like Section 8. Because after the third year or the fourth year, they're gone. They either pay the rent, the city stops paying rent. They try to bring us into this program to support it. We wouldn't support it. We said we're not going to oppose it, and we'll educate our people, but we can't support this program because even though they didn't cut it this year, at some point you would have had the same problem 2 years from now. So let me tell you what we decided to do, even though some people made the wrong business judgment call. We have joined forces, it's going to be shocking, with Legal Aid. Legal Aid is going to sue the city for having dropped the program, not fund the program. RSA, I signed the affidavit actually today, we're going into court together to fight the city of New York on this particular program. Now I got to tell you, I think it's a hard reach. It's a very hard reach because the state cut the funding and the cities, instead of saying, let's try to see whether we can find resources within the budget, says, well, it's the state's fault. And that's why your only recourse, if this doesn't get refunded, your only recourse, unfortunately, is to go in and try to evict the tenant. And it's really unfair because the tenant, in good faith, volunteered to go into a program based on the promises of the city. And you, in good faith, based on the contract you made with the city of New York, decided to take this tenant. Both of you end up losing. And the culprit, which is government, gets away without any retribution. Okay? Yes, man standing up. Oh, sorry. There was a young lady here. I'm not missing those line numbers. Go ahead. Hi, new member. How many are new members? How many are old timers?
Old timer.
New members?
All right. Oh, you're in the minority. It's okay. It's good.
You need to repeat the question.
Here's the question. Should we be in the broker's business of allowing people to put their apartments on our website so that there's a potential buyer out there for their buildings, right? Or you want to sell your building? Anybody want to buy your building?
What kind of building is it?
What's your red roll?
She's so
Don't
happy.
rent roll. I'm
She's
gonna
so
go shit.
happy with the laws. She wants to sell.
How many rent control we got?
The answer is no. And it's a very simple. There are other vendors and other people who have asked us the same question. We are very careful what we do as an organization. We're very careful. Because if we do the wrong program or put something on, we can't guarantee who you are. We're not going to do the due diligence of vending you. And then somebody's going to have to go in and check your rent roll to make sure that you know what outstanding fines. We don't want to get into the business because it can only, and plus, if we did that, you know how many brokers would yell at us? You know, they want their piece.